The sun hung low in the sky, painting the world in shades of gold and amber. Lakeview Park was alive with sounds, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, and the distant laughter of children playing tag. It was one of those perfect afternoons, where time seemed to slow down, inviting people to pause and enjoy life's simplest pleasures. Families spread picnic blankets under the shade of towering oak trees. Couples strolled hand in hand along winding paths, and joggers moved steadily past clusters of benches. On one such bench near the edge of the park, a young girl sat quietly, her focus entirely absorbed by the sketchpad resting on her lap. Her name was Maya Johnson, a bright-eyed 14-year-old with a mop of curly hair tied back into a loose ponytail. She wore a faded denim jacket over a plain white t-shirt, paired with jeans that had seen better days. Despite her modest appearance, there was something magnetic about her. Perhaps it was the intensity in her dark brown eyes, or the way her pencil danced across the paper, bringing her imagination to life. Maya loved art more than anything else. For as long as she could remember, drawing had been her escape, a way to express herself when words failed her. Today, she had chosen the park as her canvas, letting the beauty around her inspire her work. On the page before her, delicate lines formed the outline of a tree, its branches stretching toward an invisible sky. Birds perched on some of the higher limbs, their feathers rendered with intricate detail. Every stroke of her pencil told a story, capturing not just what she saw but how she felt. As she worked, the peaceful ambiance of the park suddenly shifted. The soft hum of conversation and the gentle patter of footsteps were drowned out by the deafening roar of motorcycle engines. A group of bikers rolled into the park like a storm cloud breaking through a clear blue sky. Their arrival was impossible to ignore. The rumble of their bikes echoed off the nearby buildings, startling pigeons into flight and scattering families who had been enjoying their picnics. At the head of the pack rode Jake Miller, a man whose imposing frame and scowling expression made him look like he belonged in a different place altogether, one far removed from the serene setting of Lakeview Park. Jake wasn't alone. Behind him rode two other men, both equally rough-looking, their leather jackets adorned with patches that hinted at a lifestyle steeped in rebellion and recklessness. They weaved between pedestrians without slowing down, leaving chaos in their wake. Mothers pulled their children closer, shielding them from the commotion, while others simply stared, unsure whether to feel annoyed or intimidated. The bikers paid no attention to the reactions they provoked. If anything, they seemed to thrive on the disruption they caused. When they finally came to a stop near the center of the park, Jake swung his leg over his bike and dismounted with the swagger of someone who believed the world revolved around him. His companions followed suit, leaning casually against their machines as though they owned the place. Jake stretched his arms above his head, his leather jacket creaking with the movement, and surveyed the scene before him. His sharp blue eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Maya, still seated on her bench, oblivious to the sudden change in atmosphere. "What do we have here?" Jake muttered to himself, a smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. He strode toward her, his heavy boots crunching against the gravel path. One of his friends called out, "Hey, Jake, leave the kid alone." But the warning went unheeded. Jake thrived on stirring up trouble, and the sight of a young girl absorbed in her own little world presented too tempting an opportunity to pass up. Reaching the bench, Jake loomed over Maya, casting a shadow that blocked out the sunlight. Startled, she glanced up, her pencil freezing mid-stroke. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Jake's gaze flicked down to the sketchpad in her lap, taking in the unfinished drawing. Then, without asking permission, he reached out and snatched it from her hands. Maya gasped, instinctively reaching for it, but Jake held it just out of reach. "Let me see this," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. He flipped through the pages, pausing occasionally to sneer at the sketches. "What is this supposed to be? Some kind of bird? Looks like a chicken to me." His loud comment drew the attention of his friends, who laughed heartily at his cruel joke. Encouraged by their reaction, Jake turned the sketchpad toward them, holding it up so everyone nearby could see. "Check it out, guys. This kid thinks she's some kind of artist." Maya's face burned with embarrassment. She clenched her fist tightly, trying to hold back tears. "Please give it back," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. But Jake only laughed harder, clearly relishing the power he held over her. Give it back? Nah, I don't think so. Maybe you should stick to coloring books instead of wasting your time with this junk. With that, he tore one of the pages out of the sketchpad and crumpled it into a ball. Without hesitation, he tossed it onto the ground at Maya's feet. The act felt like a punch to the gut. Maya stared at the crumpled paper, her vision blurring with unshed tears. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but fear rooted her to the spot. All she could do was stand there trembling as Jake and his friends continued to ridicule her work. Around them, a small crowd began to gather, drawn by the commotion. Some looked sympathetic, shaking their heads disapprovingly at Jake's behavior, while others watched silently, unwilling to get involved. Just as Maya thought things couldn't get any worse, a new figure entered the scene. From the edge of the growing crowd emerged a man dressed in a simple martial arts uniform, a crisp white shirt paired with black pants. His presence was understated yet commanding, his every movement radiating calm confidence. Though he wasn't particularly tall or muscular, there was something about him that demanded respect. His piercing eyes locked onto Jake, assessing the situation with quiet intensity. For a brief moment, the noise in the park seemed to fade away, replaced by an almost palpable tension. The man stepped forward, positioning himself between Jake and Maya. His voice when he spoke was firm but measured. "That's enough," he said, addressing Jake directly. The biker froze, caught off guard by the unexpected intervention. For the first time since arriving at the park, he found himself facing someone who didn't seem afraid of him. Jake narrowed his eyes, his smirk faltering slightly. "Who the hell are you supposed to be?" he demanded, his tone laced with aggression. The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he glanced down at Maya, offering her a reassuring nod before turning his attention back to Jake. His silence only served to irritate the biker further. Sensing that his authority was being challenged, Jake straightened up, puffing out his chest in an attempt to appear even more intimidating. But the man remained unfazed, his stance relaxed, yet alert. Unbeknownst to anyone present, this stranger was none other than Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist and philosopher. Though few recognized him, his reputation preceded him wherever he went. Yet despite his fame, Bruce had always believed in using his skills, not for show, but for purpose, to protect those who couldn't defend themselves. And in that moment, standing between a frightened young girl and a bully twice his size, he knew exactly what needed to be done. The stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the park had ever witnessed. As the tension mounted, all eyes were fixed on the unlikely pair, Jake, brash and arrogant, and Bruce, calm and resolute. No one could predict what would happen next, but one thing was certain. The quiet afternoon at Lakeview Park would never be forgotten. Jake's face twisted into a sneer as he took a step closer to Bruce, trying to assert his dominance. The biker towered over the smaller man, his broad shoulders and muscular frame making him appear almost monstrous in comparison. But Bruce didn't flinch. His calm demeanor remained unshaken, as if he were facing nothing more than a mild inconvenience rather than an angry, unpredictable opponent. "You got a problem, buddy?" Jake growled, jabbing a finger toward Bruce's chest. The gesture was meant to intimidate, but Bruce simply glanced down at the finger, then back up at Jake, his expression unchanged. "I do," Bruce replied evenly. "You're disturbing this girl and ruining her work. That stops now." His tone wasn't loud or aggressive. It was firm, like a teacher addressing a misbehaving student. Yet there was something about it that made Jake hesitate for just a fraction of a second. The pause was fleeting, though. Jake quickly recovered, his ego bruised by Bruce's lack of fear. "Oh yeah? And what are you going to do about it, huh? Teach me a lesson?" He spat, his voice rising. He turned to his friends, who were still lounging against their bikes nearby, and laughed loudly, seeking their approval. They chuckled nervously, unsure whether to join in or stay quiet. The tension in the air was thick, and even the onlookers could feel it. Some shifted uncomfortably, while others leaned forward, eager to see how the situation would unfold. Bruce didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached down and gently picked up Maya's crumpled sketch from the ground. With slow, deliberate movements, he smoothed out the paper as best he could and handed it back to her. "Don't let them take away your joy," he said softly, his voice carrying only to her ears. Maya hesitated before taking the drawing, her hands trembling slightly. She nodded, her wide eyes filled with gratitude and confusion. For the first time since Jake had approached her, she felt a flicker of hope. But Jake wasn't done. Seeing Bruce focus on Maya only fueled his anger further. "Hey," he barked, stepping between them. "I'm talking to you." His voice echoed through the park, drawing even more attention from bystanders. Parents pulled their children closer, shielding them from the escalating confrontation, while others whispered among themselves, speculating about what might happen next. Bruce finally turned his full attention back to Jake. "And I'm telling you," he said, his voice steady and clear, "to leave her alone. There's no need for this kind of behavior." He didn't raise his voice or adopt a threatening posture. Instead, he stood relaxed, his weight evenly distributed on both feet, his arms loose at his sides. To anyone watching, he looked almost casual, as if he weren't standing toe-to-toe with someone twice his size. Jake bristled at the calmness in Bruce's tone. It infuriated him. In his world, people either backed down or fought back, and Bruce's refusal to play either role left him feeling off balance. "You think you're tough, huh?" Jake snarled, clenching his fists. Without warning, he swung a punch at Bruce, aiming for his face. The blow was fast and powerful, the kind of strike that would have knocked most people off their feet. But Bruce wasn't most people. With lightning speed, Bruce sidestepped the punch, moving so fluidly that it seemed almost effortless. Jake stumbled forward, thrown off balance by the force of his own swing. Before he could recover, Bruce stepped in close, delivering a sharp tap to Jake's ribs. Not hard enough to cause serious harm, but enough to make him wince. The entire exchange happened in the blink of an eye, leaving onlookers stunned. "What the—" Jake wheeled around, his face flushed with rage and disbelief. One of his friends called out, "Careful, Jake, this guy knows what he's doing." But Jake wasn't listening. Fury clouded his judgment, and he charged at Bruce again, throwing wild punches aimed at overwhelming his opponent. Each strike missed its mark, as Bruce moved with precision, slipping past every attack like water flowing around rocks. Maya watched, in awe, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never seen anything like this before. Every movement Bruce made was calculated and efficient, without a hint of wasted energy. Even as Jake grew increasingly frustrated, Bruce remained composed, his breathing steady and controlled. It was clear that he wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to end the conflict as quickly and safely as possible. Realizing that his punches weren't landing, Jake switched tactics. He lunged forward, attempting to grab Bruce and overpower him with sheer strength. But Bruce anticipated the move. As Jake closed in, Bruce pivoted smoothly, using the momentum of the tackle against him. With a swift motion, he redirected Jake's force, sending the larger man stumbling past him and crashing into one of the park benches. The impact sent a jolt through the crowd, eliciting gasps and murmurs of surprise. Jake scrambled to his feet, his face red with humiliation and anger. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he shouted, his voice tinged with desperation. He reached for a chain hanging from his belt, clearly intending to use it as a weapon. The sight of the metal links glinting in the sunlight caused a ripple of unease among the spectators. This was no longer just a scuffle. It was turning into something far more dangerous. Before Jake could fully unsheath the chain, Bruce acted. In one swift motion, he closed the distance between them, grabbing Jake's wrist and twisting it gently but firmly. The chain clattered to the ground, useless in Jake's grip. Bruce applied just enough pressure to immobilize him without causing injury, demonstrating not only skill but restraint. Jake winced, unable to break free despite his size advantage. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. "Enough," Bruce said quietly, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Jake froze, his bravado crumbling under the weight of Bruce's authority. Slowly, Bruce released his hold and stepped back, giving Jake space to retreat. The biker staggered backward, rubbing his wrist and glaring at Bruce with a mixture of hatred and shame. For several long moments, no one spoke. The only sounds were the rustling leaves and distant chirping of birds, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Jake glanced at his friends, who avoided his gaze, clearly unwilling to back him up any further. Defeated, he turned and stormed back to his bike, muttering curses under his breath. His companions followed suit, mounting their machines and revving the engines loudly in a final act of defiance. Within seconds, they roared out of the park, leaving behind a trail of dust and silence. As the noise faded, the crowd began to disperse, many shaking their heads in disbelief at what they had witnessed. Some clapped softly, while others simply walked away deep in thought. Maya stood rooted to the spot, clutching her sketchpad tightly to her chest. Her tears had dried, replaced by a sense of wonder and admiration for the man who had come to her aid. Bruce knelt down beside her, meeting her gaze with a warm smile. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Maya nodded, though words failed her. Bruce placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Remember," he said, his voice soft but firm, "your art is valuable. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." With that, he rose to his feet and began walking away, blending seamlessly into the crowd as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Maya watched him go, her mind racing with questions. Who was that man? How had he moved so effortlessly against someone so much bigger? And why had he chosen to help her when no one else dared? As the reality of the moment settled in, she realized one thing for certain. Her life, and her perspective, had been forever changed. The park slowly returned to its usual rhythm after the bikers' noisy departure. Families resumed their picnics, children went back to playing on the swings, and joggers continued along the paths as if the confrontation had never happened. But for Maya, the world felt different now. The quiet confidence of the man who had stepped in to protect her lingered like a warm glow, chasing away the fear and embarrassment that Jake's cruelty had left behind. Maya sat back down on the bench, still clutching her sketchpad tightly. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages, inspecting the damage Jake had done. One page was torn at the corner, and another had a smudge where his fingers had gripped it too hard. Yet, despite the imperfections, her drawings remained intact, just like her spirit. She traced a finger over the crumpled sketch Bruce had smoothed out and handed back to her. It wasn't perfect anymore, but somehow, it meant more to her now than it ever had before. As she looked around, Maya noticed that some people were still watching her. A mother with 2 young children gave her an encouraging smile, while an older man nodded approvingly from a nearby bench. These small gestures of support reminded her that not everyone had been indifferent to what had happened. Still, no one approached her, not even to ask if she was okay. It was as though they were leaving her space to process everything on her own, and maybe that was exactly what she needed. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Bruce. Who was he? Why had he intervened when so many others had stayed silent? She replayed the scene in her mind, marveling at how effortlessly he had moved against Jake. Each step, each motion had been precise and purposeful, yet there was no malice in his actions. He hadn't sought to hurt Jake, he had simply stopped him. There was something deeply admirable about that kind of control, something Maya couldn't quite put into words. Lost in her thoughts, Maya didn't notice the elderly woman approaching until she spoke. "Are you all right, dear?" the woman asked gently, her voice warm and comforting. Maya looked up to see a kindly face framed by silver hair. The woman held a cane in one hand and offered a tissue with the other. "I saw what happened," she continued. "That was very brave of you, standing your ground like that." Maya accepted the tissue, dabbing at her eyes even though she wasn't crying anymore. "Thank you," she murmured. "But I don't think I was brave. I was just scared." The woman chuckled softly. "Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave, sweetheart. Sometimes bravery is just about staying strong when things get tough. She paused, glancing in the direction Bruce had gone. And sometimes bravery comes in the form of someone else stepping in to help. That man, you know who he is, don't you? Maya shook her head. No, ma'am. I've never seen him before today. The woman's eyes sparkled with recognition. That's Bruce Lee. Well, let's just say he's someone special. Not because of his fame or his skills, but because of the way he uses them. Did you see how he handled that big guy? No anger, no hatred, just calmness and control. That's rare these days. Maya frowned, trying to piece together what the woman was saying. So, he's famous? In some circles, yes, the woman replied. But fame isn't what makes him remarkable. It's his heart. He believes in helping others, in teaching people to respect themselves and each other. You're lucky to have met him, even if it was only for a moment. Maya nodded slowly, absorbing the woman's words. She wanted to ask more questions, but the sound of distant laughter drew her attention. A group of kids ran past, chasing a soccer ball, their carefree energy filling the air. For the first time since Jake had shown up, Maya felt a smile tug at the corners of her mouth. Life moved on, she realized, even after moments that felt life-changing. The elderly woman patted Maya's shoulder lightly. Take care of yourself, dear, and keep drawing. The world needs more beauty like yours. With that, she turned and walked away, her cane tapping softly against the pavement. Maya watched her go, feeling a renewed sense of determination. She opened her sketch pad to a fresh page and picked up her pencil. As she began sketching, her earlier anxiety melted away, replaced by a quiet resolve. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she could face them. After all, she had already faced one of the toughest moments of her life, and come out stronger on the other side. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Maya made her way home. Her neighborhood was quiet, the streets lined with modest houses and tall trees. She lived with her grandmother in a small, cozy house near the edge of town. Grandma Johnson was waiting for her on the porch, rocking slowly in her favorite chair. Her gray hair was tied back in a neat bun, and her glasses perched precariously on the tip of her nose as she read a worn-out novel. There you are, Grandma said, looking up as Maya climbed the steps. I was starting to worry. Did you have fun at the park? Maya hesitated for a moment, unsure how much to share. Then she decided to tell the truth. Not exactly, she admitted, sitting down on the swing next to the porch railing. She recounted the entire incident, the arrival of the bikers, Jake's cruel taunts, and Bruce's intervention. As she spoke, her grandmother listened intently, her expression shifting from concern to admiration. Well, Grandma said when Maya finished, it sounds like you had quite the adventure, and this Bruce fellow, he sounds like quite the hero. He's not like other heroes, Maya said thoughtfully. He didn't yell or try to scare Jake off, he just stopped him, like it was nothing. Grandma smiled knowingly. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who don't need to prove their strength. They act because it's the right thing to do, not because they want glory or praise. Maya nodded, thinking about Bruce's calm demeanor and the way he had reassured her afterward. Do you think I'll ever be like that? She asked quietly. Strong enough to stand up for myself? Or for someone else? Her grandmother reached over and took her hand. You already are, sweetheart. Today proved that. You didn't run away or give up even when things got scary. That takes courage. And as for standing up for others, well, that's something. We learn along the way. Just remember, kindness and strength go hand in hand. Maya squeezed her grandmother's hand, feeling a surge of gratitude. Talking to her always made her feel better, no matter how bad things seemed. Thanks, Grandma, she said with a small smile. I'll try to remember that. After dinner, Maya retreated to her room, closing the door behind her. The walls were covered in her artwork, drawings of animals, landscapes, and abstract designs. She loved creating worlds where anything was possible, where fear and cruelty had no place. Tonight, however, she found herself staring at a blank sheet of paper, her pencil hovering uncertainly above it. What should she draw? The events of the day swirled in her mind, vivid and unforgettable. Finally, she began sketching, a figure, standing tall and composed, facing down a much larger opponent. Around them a crowd looked on, their faces a mix of awe and admiration. In the background, she added details from the park, the trees, the benches, the sunlight filtering through the leaves. When she finished, she stepped back to examine her work. It wasn't perfect, but it captured the essence of what had happened. More importantly, it reminded her of the lesson she had learned that day. True strength lies not in overpowering others, but in protecting those who can't protect themselves. And sometimes, even in the darkest moments, a single act of kindness can change everything. Satisfied, Maya placed the drawing carefully on her desk and turned off the light. As she climbed into bed, she thought about Bruce again. Wherever he was now, she hoped he knew how much his actions had meant to her. Because of him, she believed in herself a little more, and in the goodness of the world, too. The days that followed the incident at Lakeview Park passed quickly for Maya, but they were far from ordinary. The memory of Bruce Lee's intervention lingered in her mind like a guiding light, shaping her thoughts and actions in ways she couldn't have anticipated. She found herself observing the world around her more closely, noticing moments of kindness and cruelty alike. It was as if the confrontation had opened her eyes to something deeper, a realization that even small acts could carry immense weight. At school, Maya became quieter than usual. Her classmates didn't notice much. She had always been reserved, often keeping to herself during lunch breaks or group activities. But inside, her mind buzzed with questions. What made someone step in when others stayed silent? How did Bruce stay so calm when faced with someone like Jake? These thoughts haunted her not because they troubled her, but because she wanted answers. Answers that might help her grow into the kind of person she admired. One afternoon, while sitting alone, under a tree on the school playground, Maya overheard a conversation between two boys nearby. One of them, a lanky kid named Ethan, was being teased by a taller boy named Ryan. Ryan's words weren't cruel in the way Jake's had been. They were light-hearted jabs meant to provoke laughter, but they clearly made Ethan uncomfortable. He shifted awkwardly, trying to laugh along but failing to hide his embarrassment. Maya hesitated, torn between staying out of it and saying something. She wasn't sure what she could do, or whether she should do anything at all. After all, this wasn't the same as what had happened in the park. There was no real danger here, no bully threatening violence. Still, she remembered how isolated she had felt when Jake mocked her drawings, and how Bruce's simple act of standing up for her had changed everything. Summoning her courage, Maya stood up and walked over to the boys. "Hey, Ryan," she said, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. "Why don't you leave Ethan alone? Can't you see he doesn't like it?" Ryan turned to look at her, surprised. "Who asked you?" he shot back, though there was no real anger in his tone. "It's just a joke." "It's not funny if it makes him feel bad," Maya replied firmly. "You wouldn't like it if someone did the same to you." For a moment, Ryan seemed unsure how to respond. Then with a shrug, he muttered, "Whatever," and walked away, leaving Ethan standing there looking both relieved and bewildered. Maya smiled shyly at him. "Are you okay?" she asked. Ethan nodded, still a little flustered. "Yeah, thanks. I didn't think anyone would say anything." "Sometimes people just need to know they're not alone," Maya said softly. The words felt strange coming out of her mouth. She wasn't used to speaking so openly, but they rang true. As she returned to her spot under the tree, she felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was a start. That evening, Maya decided to visit the local library after finishing her homework. Her grandmother had encouraged her to explore books about art and history, hoping to inspire her creativity. But today, Maya wandered into a section she rarely explored, biographies. She scanned the shelves until she found what she was looking for, a book about Bruce Lee. The elderly woman at the park had mentioned his name, sparking Maya's curiosity. and now she wanted to learn more about the man who had changed her life in such an unexpected way. Settling into a quiet corner of the library, Maya opened the book and began reading. She learned about Bruce's early years in San Francisco, his passion for martial arts, and his journey to becoming a teacher and philosopher. What struck her most was his belief in using martial arts not just for self-defense but as a means of personal growth. He taught people to respect themselves and others, emphasizing harmony over conflict. His philosophy resonated deeply with Maya, reminding her of the calm strength he had shown in the park. As she read, Maya realized that Bruce's actions hadn't come from a desire to be heroic. They had come from a place of compassion. He hadn't sought recognition or reward. He had simply done what he believed was right. That idea inspired her. Maybe she didn't need to wait for extraordinary circumstances to make a difference. Maybe she could find ways to spread kindness and understanding in her everyday life. By the time she left the library, Maya felt energized. She carried the book home carefully, eager to share what she had learned with her grandmother. When she arrived, Grandma Johnson was in the kitchen preparing dinner, humming softly to herself. The smell of fried chicken and mashed potatoes filled the air, making Maya's stomach rumble. "Grandma, guess what I found at the library?" Maya exclaimed, holding up the book proudly. Her grandmother turned, wiping her hands on a dish towel, and smiled. "Let me guess. It's about that Bruce fellow, isn't it?" Maya grinned. "How did you know?" "I saw the way your eyes lit up when you talked about him," Grandma replied. "So what did you learn?" Over dinner, Maya shared stories from the book, recounting Bruce's struggles and triumphs. She explained how he had overcome prejudice and stereotypes to become a global icon, not just for his skills but for his teachings. "He believed that everyone has the power to change the world," Maya said earnestly. "Even if it's just one person at a time." Grandma nodded thoughtfully. "That's a powerful message. Do you think you can live by it?" Maya paused, considering the question. "I want to try," she said finally. "I don't know if I'll ever be as brave as he was, but I can start small, like standing up for Ethan today." Her grandmother beamed with pride. "That's all any of us can do, sweetheart. Start small and let the rest follow." The next morning, Maya woke up early, unable to shake the excitement bubbling inside her. She grabbed her sketch pad and headed outside, eager to capture the crisp autumn air in her drawings. The neighborhood was bathed in golden sunlight, and leaves crunched beneath her feet as she walked to a nearby park. This one was smaller and quieter than Lakeview, with fewer visitors and a serene atmosphere. She settled onto a bench. Maya noticed a young boy sitting alone on the grass a short distance away. He looked to be about 8 or 9, with tousled hair and clothes that were slightly too big for him. In his hands, he clutched a tattered notebook, scribbling furiously. Curious, Maya approached him cautiously. "Hi," she said gently, crouching down to his level. "What are you working on?" The boy glanced up, startled, then relaxed slightly when he saw her friendly smile. "It's a story," he mumbled, holding the notebook close to his chest. "About a dragon." "That sounds amazing," Maya said sincerely. "Can I see?" He hesitated before nodding and handing her the notebook. Inside were pages filled with messy handwriting and crude illustrations of dragons breathing fire and soaring through stormy skies. It was clear the boy had poured his heart into the project, even if it wasn't polished. "This is really good," Maya told him, meaning every word. "Do you like writing stories?" The boy shrugged. "I guess. Nobody else thinks so." "Well, they're wrong," Maya said firmly. "Your imagination is incredible. Keep going. You never know where it might take you." The boy's face brightened and he hugged the notebook tightly. "Thanks," he whispered. Maya smiled and returned to her bench, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Helping the boy reminded her of how Bruce had helped her, not with grand gestures, but with simple encouragement. It was proof that kindness, no matter how small, could create ripples that reached farther than she imagined. Later that week, Maya decided to enroll in an after-school art class her grandmother had told her about. She had always drawn for herself, but now she wanted to learn more. to push her boundaries and discover new ways to express herself. On her first day, she met other kids who shared her passion, each bringing their own unique style and perspective. Together, they worked on projects, exchanged ideas, and supported one another. Through it all, Maya kept thinking about Bruce. Though she doubted she would ever meet him again, his influence remained a constant presence in her life. He had shown her that strength wasn't just about physical power. It was about standing firm in your beliefs, protecting those in need, and inspiring others to do the same. And as she continued to grow, Maya vowed to carry those lessons with her, spreading light wherever she went. Weeks turned into months, and Maya's life began to transform in subtle but meaningful ways. The art class she had joined became a sanctuary for her, a place where she could lose herself in colors and shapes without worrying about the outside world. Her teacher, Mrs. Harper, was a kind woman with curly gray hair and a knack for spotting potential in her students. She encouraged Maya to experiment with different techniques and styles, pushing her to step out of her comfort zone. First, Maya struggled. She wasn't used to painting with bold strokes or mixing unconventional colors. But with each attempt, she grew more confident. One day, Mrs. Harper handed her a blank canvas and said, "Paint something that tells your story. Don't think too much, just let it flow." Maya hesitated at first, unsure where to begin. Then she closed her eyes and let her memories guide her brush. What emerged was a vivid scene. A young girl sitting on a park bench, surrounded by swirling chaos. In the distance, a figure stood tall, calm and composed, radiating strength. The colors were vibrant yet balanced, capturing both the turmoil and the hope Maya had felt that day. When she finished, she stepped back, surprised by what she had created. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that made it beautiful. Mrs. Harper smiled warmly when she saw the painting. "This is wonderful, Maya," she said. "It has so much emotion. Have you thought about entering it in the community art show next month?" Maya blinked in surprise. "Me? I don't know. I've never done anything like that before." "That's exactly why you should try," Mrs. Harper replied. "Art isn't just about skill. It's about sharing your perspective with the world, and this piece has a powerful message." Encouraged by her teacher's words, Maya decided to take the leap. She spent hours refining her painting, adding details and adjusting the colors until it felt just right. The process was challenging, but it also gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced before. For the first time, she wasn't creating art just for herself. She was doing it to connect with others. The day of the art show arrived, and Maya felt a mix of excitement and nerves as she walked into the community center. The room was filled with paintings, sculptures, and photographs, each one telling a unique story. People milled about, chatting and admiring the artwork, their voices blending into a soft hum. Maya spotted her grandmother near the entrance, waving enthusiastically. Beside her stood Ethan, the boy from school who had been teased by Ryan. He grinned when he saw her, holding up a small drawing he had brought along. "I didn't think I'd see you here," Maya said, smiling. "Neither did I," Ethan admitted. "But my mom said I should come and support you. Besides, I wanted to see your dragon painting." Maya laughed. "It's not about dragons, but thanks anyway." As the evening went on, Maya wandered through the exhibits, marveling at the creativity around her. Some pieces were abstract, full of bold lines and splashes of color. Others were realistic, depicting scenes of everyday life with incredible detail. Each one reminded her of how diverse and limitless art could be. Then she noticed a crowd gathering near her painting. At first, she assumed they were looking at the piece beside hers, a striking portrait of an elderly woman. But then she realized they were discussing her work. A man with glasses leaned closer, pointing at the figure in the background. "Who is that?" he asked aloud. "It's supposed to be Bruce Lee," a woman nearby replied. "Didn't you hear about him stepping in to stop a bully at Lakeview Park? Word got around town." Maya froze, her heart racing. She hadn't intended for anyone to recognize the figure in her painting, let alone connect it to the real-life incident. but now that it was out there, she couldn't deny it. Slowly, she approached the group, feeling a mix of pride and vulnerability. "Did you paint this?" the man with glasses asked, noticing her standing nearby. "Yes," Maya replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's based on something that happened to me." The crowd turned to face her, their expressions curious but kind. One woman smiled and said, "It's beautiful. You've captured so much emotion. The fear, the courage, the hope. It's inspiring." Maya blushed, unsure how to respond. She glanced at her grandmother, who gave her an encouraging nod. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. "That day changed me," she said softly. "I learned that even when things seem impossible, there are always people willing to help. And sometimes, all it takes is one person to remind us of our own strength." Her words hung in the air, met with nods and murmurs of agreement. Someone clapped, and soon the entire room joined in, filling the space with applause. Maya felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, overwhelmed by the warmth and support surrounding her. For so long she had doubted whether her art mattered, but now she realized it could touch hearts in ways she never imagined. After the art show, Maya's confidence soared. Her painting received honorable mention, which thrilled her beyond measure. More importantly, it sparked conversations about kindness, resilience, and the power of standing up for others. Teachers at school invited her to talk to younger students about her experience, and she happily obliged. Each time she shared her story, she felt a little braver, a little stronger. One afternoon, while walking home from school, Maya passed by Lakeview Park. She hadn't been back since the incident with Jake, but something drew her inside. The park looked the same as ever, trees swaying gently in the breeze, children laughing on the swings, families enjoying picnics. Yet, as she strolled along the familiar paths, she noticed something new, a plaque mounted on a wooden post near the benches. Curious, she approached it and read the inscription. "In memory of moments that inspire courage and compassion, let us stand together against cruelty and celebrate acts of kindness." Maya stared at the plaque, her throat tightening with emotion. She didn't know who had placed it there or why, but it felt like a reminder of everything she had gone through, and everything she had gained. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude for Bruce, for her grandmother, for the strangers who had supported her, and for the journey that had brought her to this point. As she stood there, a man approached her. He was older, with graying hair and a gentle smile. "Are you Maya?" he asked. She nodded, startled. "Yes, do I know you?" "No," he replied, shaking his head. "But I heard your story, at the art show and around town. I just wanted to say thank you. Your courage reminds us all of what's possible when we choose to care for one another." Maya didn't know what to say. She simply smiled, feeling a lump rise in her throat. The man nodded once more, then turned and walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts. That night, as Maya lay in bed, she reflected on everything that had happened. From the moment Jake had mocked her drawings to the art show that celebrated her growth, she had come so far. She wasn't the same shy, uncertain girl she had been months ago. She had faced fear, found strength, and discovered the importance of using her voice, not just for herself but for others. Before drifting off to sleep, she opened her sketch pad to a fresh page. With careful strokes, she began drawing a new picture. A young girl standing tall, surrounded by people reaching out to her. Above them, the sun shone brightly, casting light over everyone. It was a simple image, but it carried a powerful message, one she hoped would stay with her forever. Kindness creates ripples, Maya thought as she set down her pencil, and those ripples can change the world. Years passed, and Maya grew into a young woman with dreams that stretched far beyond the boundaries of her small town. The shy, uncertain girl who once sat alone in Lakeview Park had blossomed into someone brimming with confidence and purpose. Her love for art remained as strong as ever, but it had evolved. What started as a quiet passion became a powerful tool, a way to tell stories, spark conversations, and inspire change. After high school, Maya earned a scholarship to study fine arts at a university in the city. It was a big step, leaving behind the familiar comforts of home, but she embraced the challenge with open arms. The bustling streets, towering buildings, and diverse cultures of urban life provided endless inspiration for her work. She filled notebooks with sketches of street musicians, crowded subway cars, and sunsets reflected in skyscraper windows. Each scene captured not just what she saw, but how she felt: alive, curious, and hopeful. Her professors quickly noticed her talent and encouraged her to explore themes of social justice through her art. At first, Maya hesitated. She wasn't sure if she was ready to share such personal experiences on a larger scale. But then she remembered the plaque at Lakeview Park, the applause at the community art show, and the countless moments when strangers had told her how her story had touched them. Slowly, she began weaving pieces of her past into her artwork, not as a reminder of pain, but as a celebration of resilience. One of her most ambitious projects was a mural titled Ripples. It depicted a single act of kindness, a man standing between a bully and a frightened girl, spreading outward like waves in water. Surrounding the central image were smaller scenes: children playing together, people helping an elderly neighbor carry groceries, a teacher comforting a student. The message was clear: even the smallest actions could create lasting impact. The mural took months to complete, but when it was unveiled on the side of a community center downtown, it drew attention from all over the city. News outlets covered the story, calling it a masterpiece of hope and a tribute to the power of compassion. People came from miles away to see it, standing in front of the vibrant colors and intricate details, lost in thought. Some left flowers or notes at the base of the wall, sharing their own stories of kindness received or given. Maya watched it all unfold with a mix of pride and humility. She hadn't set out to become famous. She simply wanted to remind people of the good they were capable of. And yet, here she was, standing in the spotlight, holding interviews and giving speeches about her journey. Through it all, she stayed grounded, remembering the lessons she had learned along the way. During her final year of college, Maya received an invitation that took her breath away. A local martial arts studio was hosting a special event to honor Bruce Lee's legacy, and they wanted her to speak. They had heard about her mural and believed her story aligned perfectly with the values Bruce had championed: peace, respect, and self-belief. Maya accepted without hesitation, though she spent weeks preparing her speech, determined to do justice to the man who had changed her life. On the day of the event, the studio was packed with people of all ages and backgrounds. Parents brought their children, teenagers practiced kicks in the corner, and older adults sat quietly, reflecting on memories of Bruce's films and teachings. When Maya stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. She held up a photograph of her mural and began to speak. "I never met Bruce Lee," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. But his actions spoke louder than words ever could. On a day when I felt powerless, he showed me what true strength looks like. Not domination, but protection. Not anger, but calm. He reminded me that we all have the power to stand up for what's right, no matter how small we might feel. She paused, glancing at the audience. Faces stared back at her, some nodding, others wiping away tears. "That moment stayed with me," she continued. "It shaped who I am today. Because of him, I learned to believe in myself and to use my voice to lift others up. I painted this mural to remind us that kindness creates ripples. Those ripples can turn into waves, and those waves can change the world." When she finished speaking, the room erupted into applause. People lined up afterward to thank her, sharing their own stories of being inspired by Bruce's philosophy. One man approached her, his eyes shining with emotion. "You've honored his memory beautifully," he said. "He would be proud." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She didn't know if that was true, but she hoped it was. After graduation, Maya moved back to her hometown, bringing her art and her mission with her. She opened a small studio near Lakeview Park, offering free classes to kids who couldn't afford formal lessons. Her goal was simple: to give them the same gift she had been given, a safe space to express themselves and discover their potential. Many of her students came from tough backgrounds, facing challenges she could only imagine. But every time she saw their faces light up while painting or drawing, she knew she was making a difference. One of her favorite students was a boy named Marcus, whose energy often got him into trouble at school. At first, he struggled to sit still long enough to finish a sketch. But over time, he found joy in creating comic strips filled with superheroes battling villains. His characters weren't perfect. They had crooked noses and mismatched limbs. But they were full of heart. When he proudly showed Maya one of his finished pages, she hugged him tightly. "These are amazing," she told him. "Keep going, you never know where your imagination might take you." Marcus grinned, his face lighting up with pride. "Thanks, Miss Maya. You're the best teacher ever." Moments like these made everything worth it. Maya realized she wasn't just teaching art, she was planting seeds of confidence and creativity that would grow for years to come. And in doing so, she was honoring the legacy of the man who had planted a seed in her own life. Decades later, Maya stood once again in Lakeview Park, now an elderly woman with silver hair and glasses perched on her nose. The park looked much the same as it always had, though new trees had grown and old benches had been replaced. Near the entrance, her mural still adorned the community center wall, its colors faded, but its message intact. Beside her stood a young girl, no older than 14, holding a sketchpad and pencil. She introduced herself as Lily, explaining that she had seen Maya's mural and wanted to learn more about the story behind it. As they walked together, Maya shared her journey, the bullying, the intervention, the lessons she had carried forward. Lily listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder. "Do you think I could make a difference too?" Lily asked when Maya finished. "Of course," Maya replied with a smile. "Every act of kindness matters. Even something as simple as picking up a piece of trash or smiling at someone having a bad day, it all adds up. Just remember, we're stronger together." Lily nodded, clutching her sketchpad tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll try my best." As Maya watched the girl walk away, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her life had come full circle, from a frightened teenager in need of help to a wise mentor passing on the torch. She didn't know what the future held for Lily, but she trusted that the ripple effect would continue. After all, kindness never truly ended. It simply kept spreading, touching lives in ways no one could predict. With a contented sigh, Maya turned and headed home, the golden sunlight of late afternoon casting long shadows across the park. Behind her, the plaque near the benches gleamed softly, its inscription still visible after all these years. "Let us stand together against cruelty and celebrate acts of kindness." And somewhere, unseen but deeply felt, the spirit of Bruce Lee smiled, knowing his legacy lived on.